Hi, we're taking a shift today to talk about trauma in a different realm outside of cancer. If you don't previously know, I was involved in an abusive relationship which ended in domestic violence, extremely violent. So my first book is about that whole entire experience, and sometimes I get messages asking about the cancer, and other times I get messages regarding abuse and things of that nature. If you have read either one of my books, you'll see that I do believe personally that it is all connected. No, a person cannot give you cancer. That's not how it works. But I do believe that trauma and stress and all of those things are all contributing factors, and everything is, cumulative. So I have a friend that I only know through the grace of Instagram and direct message. And I had asked her name is Joanna, if she had anything that she would like me to talk about or wanted to add, to this channel. And she had sent me a message, which I will read, and then we'll dive in. So again, if you guys have anything you want to hear about or want to hear my thoughts on, just shoot me a message. So Joanna wrote, when you're in a relationship and you realize you're not being treated well, it's easy to get stuck to trying to figure out why. So stuck in the loop of trying to figure out why. I spend so much time asking myself, is he a narcissist? Is he not? Can he change? And she said, I went in circles for way too long. And I can comment on this. I also stayed in that cycle of questioning, as well as many women, and of course men can, have this experience as well. I'm a woman, so therefore I really just speak from my perspective because that's the only one that I can literally have. So there's a lot of factors in here. We as women, I believe, are taught, indoctrinated, encouraged to always suppress our feelings, right? And suppress our intuition, and to always need a justification before we fully will accept and, take action, right? So a lot of times, a great example is, you're waiting for an elevator and a man is beside you and you want to step into the elevator, but you're like, oh, I don't want him to think that I think anything bad of him, so I'm just going to get on this elevator, hold my breath, and hope for the best. So do you see there? We're willing to sacrifice ourselves. We're willing to betray ourselves in order to make a person that we don't know and whom we have no responsibility to feel better and feel more comfortable. Meanwhile, they may or may not even be aware of us in the complete circumstance. So by nature, a lot of women, in my opinion, seem to discredit and discount ourselves and put others before us, which there probably are a few times where that is called for. The only time I can really think that that's called for is, when you're a mother and you have your children, and you need to put them before you. Outside of that, I think that it is a huge disservice for us as women to put anyone or anything in front of ourselves. I think that it should be our children, and then outside of that, it should always be ourselves first, right? When you're on an airplane, they don't tell you to put the mask on the person next to you and then do it to yourself. It's no, yourself first and then everyone else. So before I, go down another, road and far and stray from the point of the video, is that these entities, because I don't believe they're people, sure, they're people if that's what you need to believe, to get the message across, know what they're doing, right? There is a calculation, manipulation, all of these things go into play. So they know what they're doing. And I will say this, that probably, most narcissism stems from a severe traumatic instance, which in my opinion is zero excuse to go around treating people and harming people and, ruining lives. to put it lightly. That's no excuse. I've been through a great deal of trauma before someone decided to choke the life out of me or try and then beat my face in with their fist. And I have worked hard to always strive to be a good human and to be a light in the world. So, everyone in the world has trauma, some with a capital T, some with a lowercase t. And just because you have trauma doesn't mean that you get to go around and harm people and destroy lives or attempt to do those things, right? Because my life is not destroyed by, an entity. I rose above it, but not everyone is strong and is capable and has the tools to do so. So my point being is, just because someone has had a traumatic experience does not give them the latitude, the permission, the okayness to go and create and reap havoc, and chaos on your life or anyone else's life. So going back to, these people know exactly what they're doing, right? There is this combination of punishment and then reward, and there's this back and forth in this cycle that goes on. So when you initially have those thoughts and you're questioning, is this person a narcissist? That's the deep down, your intuition telling you, one, something is not right, something is not okay, something is different. Now, they know that eventually you will catch on, but the key to their game is that you will find it out when you are far too down the line, right? So after someone's moved in, or after there's, wedding, or when you feel that you've invested too much to turn and walk away because you care too much about what everyone else thinks about you and the relationship, right? That goes into the people pleasing. That goes into the same person that will get on an elevator with someone where they're like, I don't want to, but I'm just going to do it because it's going to be fine. And, and hopefully maybe 6 times out of 10, you're fine, or 7, but what about, the other? So they count on that, right? Because they do target people, they target specific personality types. They look for people with no boundaries. They look for people that, are extremely giving and people pleasers, and will work on something until they're, blue in the face to make it work, right? So, and these things are not weaknesses. These can be great strengths, right? These can be amazing things that in the right relationship or the right environment, because this doesn't also have to be romantic. This can be also in a workplace setting, so they know what they're doing. They know what they're, looking for. Like, I don't believe anymore that someone could target me successfully, right? Like, before, obviously I was a target, and I just don't believe. I think that I've watched the movie too many times to know, right? In my dating, there's certain signs that I see, and I cut my losses, because here's the thing: I don't need 10 red flags in a row and then justifications of why those red flags are true, to get out. Now, after facing death twice, 1 at the hands of an individual and 2 at the hands of cancer, I am never, ever, ever going to wait to find out and see. So the moment, if there's an inkling of danger or this person's not okay, I'm out. Like, what's the worst that happens? Something doesn't work out, or I walk away from something that could have been, that's actually like probably the best thing that could happen, because the worst thing is I stay and then I'm reliving and doing a pattern, right? Sometimes things feel good because they are familiar, they're comfortable, right? So if I ever meet a guy and something feels eerily similar to my ex, I'm out. And it's not because I haven't done the work and I'm not healed and I'm not over him. I had someone tell me, oh, you're not over your ex. It's like, no, sir, you have red flags, sir. And I am not willing to sacrifice and betray myself to make you feel good and to also know how the movie ends, right? I've already been there, done that, seen that. So I don't need to wait to show, right? I'm not hyper vigilant. I'm calm and I'm at peace, and I love my peace. So the last thing I'm going to do is allow someone to come in and take that from me and, take a shit all over everything that I've worked hard to build and protect. So when you do feel and have these questions come up, it's your intuition telling you, get the fuck out. Something is not right. And you do not have to wait until you can write down on a list what all of those things are, right? Because I always say the person is never gonna punch you in the face on the first date, right? Because they wouldn't get what they wanted unless they're just fucking nuts and they just want to create violence. Maybe there won't be like a 1% where they will punch you on the first date, because then they don't get anything from that. They'll go to jail and that's it. But if they can convince you and manipulate you and trick you into staying and grooming you into certain behaviors, and then you're in it, you're stuck, and they already know that they're using your strengths as weaknesses against you to keep you trapped. So if they know that you are a good person and that you're going to work on things no matter what, they're just going to keep giving you breadcrumbs and all the tactics that you can read about in my book, that you can read about on Google. You can go anywhere and find the information. Like you don't have to take my word for it. Like it's literally a playbook that they have, that they may not know that they're doing it. I believe they all know that they're doing it. Maybe as a child they don't know, but there's a time in which you know exactly what you're doing, right? And not knowing is doesn't exempt you from the chaos and devastation that one wields and leaves behind. So you must listen to those voices. You must listen to those signs. When your body is telling you something's off, trust that something is off. And if you have friends that are like, oh well, ignore them and get new friends, right? Because at the end of the day, the moment you start to question is the moment deep down, if you truly look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself that you knew something was off. For me, an example, at the jump, at the offset of this individual coming into my life, something felt off. I couldn't put it into words. I tried to say, well, maybe it's me. There's something that was off and I ignored it. And every single time that something came up, I was able to make a justification. Oh, they had a hard childhood. Oh, they grew up in the projects. Oh, their dad was an alcoholic. Their dad was a druggie. All of these fucking things that don't actually matter, right? Like they don't actually matter, because all of those things can be true and you can still be a good human being. Like none of that actually matters. But instead, because of how I am, or how I was as a person, they knew that by feeding me these seeds, that it was making me become more and more empathetic and more allowing of certain behaviors. So then by the time it escalated to getting physical, I was thinking, well, is it me? Like, am I enraging them in such a way and he doesn't know, because this is the only way that he knows how to verbalize, and this is because it's what was done to him. And it's like, fuck all that. Hell no. Like none of that has anything to do with anything. Like I never did anything that justified, to have my head, pushed and slammed into a wall. I never did anything to have somebody choke me with all of their body weight, crushing my throat to the point where I couldn't really speak for a few days after. I never deserved someone to punch me in my face, wheeling me with one fist and then wailing me as they held my arms down back and forth with both of their fists, where I lost eyesight in my one eye, for 12 hours. No, I never deserved that. So the moment you think, I gotta get out of here, get out. I don't care if you're married. I don't care if you've been in this relationship for a year, 2 years, 2 weeks, whatever. Get out, because the sooner you can get out, the better you can heal and move on. The longer you stay in, the harder it is to get all the enmeshments out, the harder it is. And just because it's hard doesn't mean you can't do it, but you have to be strong, smart, and very measure twice and cut once about it, because these people are dangerous. I not often, but at times will think back to that night and just think back to how one more second on my throat, one more smash to my head, to my face, could have been over for me. Like over. Lights out, game over. There would have been no second book. There wouldn't have been any first book, because I would have been dead. Dead in the water, and this person would have gotten away with it and made up some dumbass, fucking thing. And it wouldn't matter, because I wouldn't fucking be here. So every time that something goes on and you're like, think about the worst thing that could happen. The worst thing that could happen is they kill you. and you are no longer here. You're not here for your kids. You're not here for your family. You're not here for anyone. And that's the worst thing, and I don't want that for anyone. Like, I will never forget the fear and the laying on the floor and the sheer terror of that. I will never forget. So I don't want that for anyone, which is why I'm so vocal, which is why I share my stories in books, and I'm an open book. Strangers will reach out to me and I'll tell them anything and everything, not tell them anything, but like I'll share anything about my journey with them in the hopes that it will help them not do and live what I did, but to be better and to do better. And when I tell them I'm proud of them for the decisions they make, I am so proud of them, you know, and there's no, you don't need to feel bad about yourself. You don't need to, think that I could have done something better or sooner. No, we are learning, and we are here on earth and our lives to learn and the journey, right? It would be amazing if I had realized, the childhood issues of abandonment and, the lack of relationship with my father, how that affected how I viewed, romantic relationships, and how that played out into, the world. And then all of the things I mentioned in the books, I don't want to make this video too long, is, I would have loved that. But the point is, wasn't what my path is or was. My path and my journey is to live out these things and, in my opinion, to learn from them and to do better and to share what I learned with whomever will listen and whomever needs it, right? So, I have to go back because I want to make sure that I truly answer the thing. You don't need to get stuck trying to figure out why, and you spend so much time asking yourself, is he a narcissist? Because part of you loved and fell in love with the parts and the pieces that were designed for you to fall in love with, right? Because it would be really hard to fall in love with somebody who's a horrible, demonic being 24% of, 24/7, right? Like, you would run away. So, like, these people know what they're doing, and you're a good person and you're a human, right? Like, you're a wonderful person to be able to endure what you've endured and to still think, maybe it's not really true. Maybe it's not really happening. Maybe I could do more, be more, and they would do better. But I'm promising you, there's nothing you can do aside give up who you are, what you are, and become a slave and have no emotions and be a punching bag for the rest of your life. That is the only way. And even then, they will still cheat on you. They will still lie to you, and they will still take you for everything you have and suck you dry, because that is what they do. It is not personal. I mean, it is, but it isn't, right? So I hope you understand what I'm getting at by that. It's not personal, meaning after they've done it and they've discarded you, they will go on to the next person, right? And they will keep doing it until the day they die. That's it. So the best thing you can do is to address, and you must address and heal your own wounds and your own issues, because if you do not, you will continue to meet the same person in the same patterns again and again and again. Why? Because comfort feels good. Comfort feels normal, right? Like, oh, this is what love feels like. No, that's what trauma feels like. And you've relabeled it with love because you're confused and you need help. You need to heal. You need to address why you think that love and relationships look a certain way when it's hurting you, right? You need to understand, why do I want chaos? Why do I want this? Why don't I want peace and love and a partner who truly cares for me, and we build a beautiful life together, right? So it's this whole circle of things. So, if you don't do the work, you will meet this person in different forms over and over and over again. It's just a fact. It's just a fact. It's just how cycles work. But once you see it, once you've done the work, and once you see the habits, the behaviors, the cycles, you can clock it in under 5 minutes. Like I'm telling you, I was on a date and I clocked it in under 5 minutes. No, I wasn't hypervigilant. Yes, I went in being completely open and sharing of myself and being like, maybe I'll meet someone really cool, and then from there, let's see where it goes. But I have zero interest in meeting anyone who has dark traits like that. Why? Because never again will I jeopardize my safety and my life, because I value it more than anything. I will never do that again. So the moment you start to question, get out. End it, get out. It's not worth it. If you think he's cheating, he's probably cheating, right? Like, that's not something that comes up in healthy relationships, right? I have friends that have been married for 13 years and they are so in love. Never in a day do either one of them, does that ever come up in their mind? Do they ever accuse each other of it? Does it ever come up? So if you're in a relationship and this is coming up, somebody is cheating. If you think that they're cheating, they're cheating. And cheating doesn't have to be, actively going and sleeping with someone else. Cheating can be emotional cheating, going to someone else before you go to your spouse. There's levels to it, So if you think that if there's something telling you it's happening, like I don't care what anyone has to say. You can disagree with me. I don't care. Unless you've lived it, you don't know. And we need to stop discounting our voice. We need to stop discounting our feelings. And we need to stop staying in toxic relationships just because we put in time. Who cares? Do you understand that? Here, I'm gonna tie these two things together. Do you understand the cost, the actual cost of staying in a suppressed, abusive, low vibrating, vile relationship? Cancer, autoimmune issues, depression, vibrating low and existing in your lowest of everything. Your life, that's essentially what it is. When you decide, I'm gonna just stick it out because you were directly killing yourself. You're directly snuffing out your light. Because all of that suppression, all the things that we stuff down, like I said before, energy cannot be destroyed. It is stored, the grief, the anger, all of that into our bodies. And I've seen it with myself. I see it watching friends and loved ones and strangers. It's happening. And we can say, oh, she's crazy, she's a hippie. You can say whatever you want, but the facts are the facts, and you can trace it all back. You can trace it all back to one. And the more disconnected that one wants to be, and the more that they think, oh, no, not me, it doesn't negate the fact that it's happening and already happening. So, you need to get out. You don't need to wait for justification. That's indoctrination, and that is what society tells us and has taught us to do as, from being little girls, right? It's okay, smile. Oh, give so-and-so a hug. I don't want to. Don't be rude, give them a hug. If the kid says they don't want to hug someone, don't make them hug someone, right? Like, as an adult, if I don't want to shake your hand, I'm not going to shake your hand. And however you want to take that, that's fine. Do I have to be rude about it? No, I can just go, I don't shake hands. And however you take that, that's on you, right? We need to stop personalizing and taking other people's reactions as our own and making that be the reason we betray ourselves, period. No means no, and I'm out means I'm out, right? And the more that we start to truly come into ourselves, address our issues, and really sit in and hone in and do the work is hard. The work sucks, but that's the only way. Otherwise, you will continue to do and live out the same thing over and over again, and your health will deteriorate, period. Like, that literally is the only outcome. And what is even worse is if you do have children, you're modeling that behavior to them, right? And I know that it's not easy. I have friends that I speak to on Instagram all the time and on text message all the time where, they're married and they're, in some ways, they are stuck because they have a child with this person. So therefore there is, forever. But there are ways to get away. There's protections, there's just ways. So get out and find help and work on yourself and do the work. And then she said, is he a narcissist or not? Can he change? No, he cannot change, period. They cannot change because they are who they are, right? They know who they are. You can change because you're not aware of your issues. You haven't decided to confront your issues and not issues in issues sense, but your wounds. You don't know, and they know, they see it, and they're using it to their advantage. But no, they can never change. Just ask them, or just ask their crazy ex, right? Anyone that starts off, oh, my ex is crazy, immediate red flag, because it's like, okay, So all of them are crazy and the common denominator is you? Absolutely not. Like, I'm pretty sure that person probably calls me the crazy one. Crazy enough to fucking write a book and give their playbook to the entire world, whoever wants to read it. Maybe that kind of crazy, but any other kind of crazy? Absolutely not. So the moment that someone sits there and starts to bash their ex, huge red flag. And even so much so where this person said, I have nothing bad to say about her, it just didn't work out. When they said that to me about the person they had dated previous to me, something inside me said, that's off, right? That's off. So again, let's focus more on our intuition and what we know without knowing and without having to have concrete proof and and information, right? You don't need to allow someone to gaslight you into believing something. If I believe you're full of shit, you're full of shit, and that's it. There's nothing you can say to me. And this, ties into, what I talked about in previous videos in the medical field. People trying to tell me that things don't make sense, things that make sense that don't make sense. And when I present facts to them, they just try to gaslight me into believing what they want. And that's just not how it works. So again, if something doesn't feel right, it's not right. You can't be angry at yourself because you're a good person and you wanted to believe in the potential. You wanted to believe in the best. You love parts of this person and you want to believe that what you love and what you see in those moments are true. And you're having, you're dissociating when the moments they don't add up. So you're stuck in this fog, which is by design because that's what they do, and you're unable to move. And then when you try and move, you're scared because, it's essentially like a drug. It's all the same neurotransmitters in your brain. And it's this whole back and forth thing, So I implore you, I invite you, I recommend that you go down these rabbit holes and you learn as much as you can and that you forgive yourself. First and foremost, you must forgive yourself. Fuck forgiving them. Yeah, sure, you can forgive them if you want. I had someone tell me I had to forgive this person. I said, I don't have to do anything. The only thing I have to do is forgive myself so therefore I can move forward, right? And you don't need closure. You don't need closure from a fucking liar, somebody who doesn't even know who they are, who has yet to face their own demons, right? Or actually they know who and what they are, which is what the shame and why the venom that comes out. You don't need fucking closure from something like that. You don't need closure from the devil. You need to forgive yourself and take the tools that I or anyone that you trust is giving to you and implement them in your life and move forward and live in this beautiful world that you're supposed to live in, right? You're not supposed to be miserable. And I will tell you, the peace and the quiet that I feel and that I know, despite after that going through stage 3 cancer, the peace and the love and the power and the light that I feel is incredible. Incredible. And you can have it too. You have to look within yourself. You just have to. And with that, I think that I have answered the questions. I have no idea how long this video is. And I hope that, I answered the question. And if not, I will most certainly make a follow-up. Joanna, I'm so proud of you. Today, always and forever, you did the hardest thing by moving out, did the hardest thing by asking for divorce, and you were still doing it, and you were still standing in your power. And despite all of the tactics that this person's trying to throw at you to get you hooked back in, you see them and all of this for what it is, and you see the truth, and you are trusting God, you are trusting that you're feeling, and you are standing in your power, you are standing in your light, and you are standing in your peace. Never, ever, ever go any place that diminishes any of those items, any of it. I'm proud of you, and I'll talk to you all soon.